We are Gimel Ralph. Maybe that's him now. We are Rabbi Yam Shem Rabbanan Taman. Four lines to the bottom. Rabbi Yam Shem Rabbanan Taman. Rabbi Yam, the name of the rabbis of Bavel, said, if a person said, it's incumbent upon me to bring an oil by next Monday. When Monday comes and he doesn't bring the oil over, he transgresses. He doesn't get 3 regalim in that case. As he said, by Monday. That's it. Tough luck. So if you made a specific time, then you have to bring by that specific time. Shomash Naso. What if you have a case of a guy who a year passes over him without Yom Tovim? Because obviously when it has to do with Yom Tov, so when the Yom Tov passes, that's when you transgress Baal Ta'acher. But he has 354 days based on the calendar year, not a Yom Tov, and not based on Yom Tovim. The Gemara is going to ask later on what the scenario is. But Shomash Naso, Amapel Yom Achron, the last day falls out, meaning falls away. Subsequently transgresses every single day. Every day he doesn't bring it after the last day of his year, it's another Aveira for a Baal Ta'acher of being late with bringing his korban. Okay, so he constantly transgresses more.
It sounds like someone that hasn't had a bris.
The Gemara is in fact going to bring that down. Says Gemara, very good. In Kani, ask Gemara if that's the case. Let's say also overall of Sholosh Regalim, if 3 Yom Tovim pass, at Mapil at Regel Achron, you drop him out of the last Yom Tov, and poof, Voivel Kol Regel Regel, he transgresses from then on and every other Yom Tov, which comes up. Is that the case? And immediately after Yom Tov, even though it's not yet a year, right? Because obviously you can have 3 Yom Tovim without the year being a year. Pesach Shavuos Sukkot is nowhere near a year. So this now you now start transgressing from here on in. So it says, the Gemara doesn't answer. The Gemara goes to ask a question on this question. Rabun Bar Chia asked the question, Shomash Nosa Batzeres, if the year got finished, let's say, on Shavuos, according to opinion that the Yom Tov don't have to be in proper order, right? So the last one is Shavuos. Efshar Loma or Eno Kosher V'Over, I don't understand, how can he possibly transgress the day after Shavuos? Right? Because the day after Shavuos, the question is based on Shavuos, you can't bring the korban, right? Because Shavuos is Yom Tov. The other Yom Tov you have Chol Moed, but Shavuos no Chol Moed. So what are you going to have him transgress right after Shavuos? That's not fair. When was he supposed to bring it? After Shavuos you transgress. Right after Shavuos you don't have to transgress immediately. There has to be some time, with some lag time. So it says the Gemara again. Efshel Mar Hu Eino Kosher, you can't bring a korban Shavuos itself over, yet you want to transgress. It says more Kiadah. We can say, yeah, it can work out.
Maybe you could get Israel Chag.
No, you could, but or Tashlumin is 6 days afterwards, but for some reason the Gemara doesn't entertain that. I thought about that, but it doesn't seem to work here. So it says, the Gemara gives the following possibility. 2 actually. First possibility. First, let's have a little bit of discussion about this. It says, Lo Yolin Chel Chagi at Boker. It says, when you sacrifice the Chagiga on Erev Pesach, we'll eventually come back to Shavuos, but you sacrifice Chagiga on Erev Pesach, you should not leave the fats until morning. Last one, what are you going to do with the fats? The Muri Chol Krev V'Yontiv, it was the Muri of a korban which was brought on a weekday. It was brought on Erev Pesach. You're going to put the Imurim on the Mizbeach that night. Rabbi Avo said, I explained something about B'Shachayud Aliyos B'Shabbos, when the 14th day of Nisan comes out on Shabbos. So therefore, since the 14th day of Nisan comes on Shabbos, the Chagiga becomes a korban of Shabbos. And Imurim Shabbos are craving B'Yontiv. So that doesn't work either. Ain't Chagiga Bo'imo. When the 14th day of Nisan comes on Shabbos, they don't bring a Chagiga with the Pesach. Because the halacha is that you only bring Chagiga on a weekday, not on a Shabbos. So how can you say? So how can we tell about when the 14th day comes in on Shabbos? Says more. You know what? You're right. Look at it this way. Amra Torah, and this comes back to our question. Elo, even though it doesn't say the word Elo, it's like Elo Amra Torah Kavem Bibad Yom. What the Torah is saying is bring the chaylev of the chagiga before Yom Tov begins, so it shouldn't remain till morning. Don't bring it that night. You can't bring it that night because that night is already Pesach or Pesach, right there. So it's already Pesach. You can't bring it. Rather, bring it during the day that you shouldn't come to Baal Ta'achir. So you know what? Here too, by Shavuos, it's tough. The Torah says bring it before Shavuos, so that after Shavuos you don't transgress Baal Ta'achir. So say over there you don't want to choose Hachakivei B'Yom Yom Shel Tov. There Hakivei B'Yom Yom Shel Yavel Yidei Baal Tolin. There, bring it before Yom Tov so you don't transgress Baal Tolin. Here, bring it before Yom Tov so you don't transgress Baal Ta'achir afterwards. Amar Achida said another answer. Although the Korban Eidah and Ritbaz learned this is going on Pesach, but I think it's also the Gemara tends to bring it down here for Shavuos as well. It says Ilu Avar V'Hevi Shemeino Kosher. By Pesach, if you brought the Chagiga and sacrificed it on Erev Pesach, and then you brought the fats that night, so but the evidence kosher. Ma'ashilu Avar V'Hevi Kosher. Since if you transgress and you brought the fats, they're kosher, so therefore you are over if you don't make sure that they're brought the day before, and you leave them till the first morning of Pesach. So here too, I think what I was trying to say is that, b'diavad, if you sacrifice the korban on Shavuos, you weren't supposed to, right? But b'diavad, it works, right? You're not supposed to because not supposed to bring the darim and the davos on Yom Tov. But if you did, so, but the evidence about korban, right? The korban works. So therefore, we're telling the guy, yeah, look, Shavuos is the cutoff point. High Shavuos, you couldn't bring it. But if you did bring it, it was a valid korban. So therefore, Shavuos can be the last date. It was a date which wasn't shaykh at all to bring korbanos, that I could understand. You'd have to give an extra date to supplement, to replace that day. But since you can bring korbanos on that day, right? True, it's not supposed to. But if you could, it does work. So therefore, Shavuos can be the last day of the cycle, and you can dress Baal Ta'achir the next day. Okay? It says before God you should eat your bechoros year after year. Now it says Livnei Hashem Elokecha tochlenu. What is tochlenu? Right? Could have just said tochal. Right? Why does it say to? Oh, that's not the reason. That's not the Josh. I'm sorry. It says shana b'shana. What's the extra word shana? Just say that can eat it for a year. What is shana b'shana? So we're going on a bechor, and a bechor has to be either sacrificed by the end of its year, by the end of its first year, or if it has a mum, it should be eaten by the end of its first year. Either or. So the Chumash is telling us, it has a year, and if you made a tmura of a bukhar, then it also gets a year. Okay, now it gets its own year from the time it was made into a tmura, not from the time of the original bukhar. So it was made a tmura 6 months later, so then you get on the tmura another year from that 6 months. Not a year from the beginning of the year when a Bechor's year starts. A Bechor, you get a full year to sacrifice. What happens if half the year, way through the year, you made a Tmura of this Bechor? So Tmura gets a full year too. Its own full year. Right, from the time you made a Tmura. Right. But only for the Tmura. The problem with this Gemara, the monkey wrench here, is that the Tmura of a Bechor can't be brought as a korban at all. All the Achronim here ask the question. So the answer which they give, various different answers. The Amud Yerushalmi at the bottom says that the Tmura of a Tmura of a Bechor doesn't get sacrificed, but it has Kedushas Bechor, and the Kohen has to eat it within the following year. Okay, as the kedusha b'chor, like b'chor which gets a mum, you're not allowed to weigh it, you're not allowed to sell it. So the tamur also b'chor, you have to eat it. He has the year in which to eat it with the kedusha b'chor. Okay, that's a one answer. It's Amudei Yerushalayim's answer. The other answer given is the Meichal Mayim answer, which is that this is talking about other kachim other than b'chor. So the b'chor gets a year to sacrifice. If you made tamur of other kachim, which where the tamur works, so you got a year to sacrifice that as well. Just like we said about all korbanos, right? You get a year, so the tamur always gets a year. When it's tamur b'chor, something else gets a year to sacrifice. Okay, shana l'tam, shana ba'amum. We dash in the words, the additional word, the fact that the two words shana also means that tam gets a year in which it must be sacrificed. Shana ba'amum, the ba'amum gets a year in which it must be eaten. Shana l'b'chor, shana l'kachim means there's a year for the b'chor, that the b'chor gets a year in which it can be eaten or sacrificed, and all other kachim also get a year in which until you transgress ba'al ta'achir. Shana b'shana. This is a very famous drush the Bavli brings down as well. Shana b'shana means, it says you can eat a b'chor for a year in a year. What does that mean? So the way the Bavli dashes it, and here the Yerushalmi as well. A b'chor is eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Because what shana b'shana means, you get 1 day from 1 year and 1 day from the next year. So it's 2 days and 1 night. Hechavida, how so? How does it work? Shachta be'erev Rosh HaShanah. If you slaughter an erev Rosh HaShanah, v'och erev Rosh HaShanah, uva Rosh HaShanah, you get erev Rosh HaShanah and Rosh HaShanah. Tanya Yishmael said, no lamum b'tesvav yom, b'toch shnasan. If an animal gets a mum on the 15th day within its year, now, there are many different interpretations here in the Achronim, but I looked up in Shulchan Aruch. It means, again, if an animal gets a mum, it's got a year from the mum in which to eat it, right? Or it's got a year, if it has no mum, in which to sacrifice it, right?
Yeah.
What happens if it had no mum until 15 days before the end of its year? So it doesn't get a year from then.
No.
It gets 30 days from then.
Not 15 days?
No, because it gets 15 extra days.
Why?
Because it gets 30 days from the day it gets a mum.
That's a blanket.
Yeah, it's a blanket statement. So no mum tetzva yom toshnoso. Rashi kaim achno lachar shnoso at tetzva of yom. You get another 15 days after the year's over. Rabbi Yila says zosameres titzishras she'ain shtosu shabamum mechuveres. It must be that this whole Joshua was just made that shana lebchor shana l'shar kochim, chuck it out the window, because it was mamish right, so you get precisely a year. So how can we tamper with it and give you another 15 days magnanimously? We can't be magnanimous with the raisos. So unless you're the raiso, you don't have to give necessarily a year. You can give more than a year. It can be flexible. Okay. Rabbi Yisrael said, Mastisa Messiah Rabbi Yila. It's a Mishnah which goes like Rabbi Yila. It says, HaBechor Mizman Hazeh, a Bechor in our day and age, Rashai L'Kaimor, Fil Arba Chamei Shoyim, we'll have to keep it around even 4 or 5 years. Ad Shaloi Re'om Mumche. Even though it has a mum already, but you just haven't gotten around to showing it to an expert. It's still permissible. Okay? Manachem. What are we talking about? Im l'tam. If we're talking about an animal which is tam hakvar amur, right? We already learned that you have up to a year. I'm not sure what the word hakvar amur here means. I guess he means that by a tam it is precisely a year. By a bechor tam it is precisely a year. But this must be a Baal Mum, right? Now, in a Baal Mum, we see a Baal Mum, you can wait more than a year because it says 4 or 5 years. I guess that's what it means. That the shon of a Baal Mum, like it said, that's not what it says on top of the page. Look back, it says, Shein Shnasa Shabal Mum Mechuveres, right? The fact that a Baal Mum only gets a year is not the Raisa, but a Tam, the Raisa Tak only gets a year in which to sacrifice it. So therefore, when it says here that you get 4 or 5 years, it must be talking about a Baal Mum. Okay? Says the Gemara, Echad B'chor V'echad Kol Shar Kochim V'echad Kol Kochim V'echad and all other Karbanos Overlay Mishum Regalim Below Shana. You transgress if you went through 3 Regalim even though it's not a year, or Shana Below Regalim, a year even though it's not Regalim. So it says more.
How are you going to have a year without?
Good question. Says one nichor regalim below shana that I can understand, but shana below regalim how they have a year without Yom Tovim. So Talmud over there they said Tipoteshem l'chusis man lePesach. Says the Lord, it's talking about a case where when Pesach came along it was less than 7 days old, so it couldn't be brought on Pesach that year, right? So kamad at omat so since the chus's man on Pesach, when Pesach began, unless it was born the day before Pesach, right? So it becomes 7 days old on the last day Pesach, right? So it gets a year from then. It's a bad example. I mean, it works too, but the better example is it was born 6 days before Pesach. So how long does it get actually? If we were to go by Yom Tovim, it would get 360 days, right?
Pesach is thrown out.
No, it has to go to the following. It has to go Pesach, right? Pesach's thrown out, so it has to go to.
And then the following Pesach.
Right. So, or maybe even longer if you had the Yom Tov had to be according to the proper order, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, but in that case, you only get exactly a calendar year. Okay. So it says that's the Gemara's interpretation. At first, that's the Gemara said. The Gemara rejects that. Says one, no. Just like you say over there, something which is suitable for part of the year. Now, this is talking about a Bechor as well. That the Bechor only gets a year from the day it's born, from its DOB, date of birth. The reason why it only gets a Bechor, even though for the first 8 days you can't bring it, right? The first 7 days you can't bring it. You have to wait the 8th day. Nonetheless, that doesn't matter. So to here, if that was the case, it was born within the 6 days before Pesach, you'd also say that Pesach, the year begins. Just like Bechor, the year begins on date of birth, so here the year begins on date of birth, and then it will include that first Pesach. So that can't be the case. So rather, what would I say? So it says the Gemara, so in fact you would transgress much earlier then. That's the point I want to make, because you transgress Pesach, transgress right after Sukkot, right? So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Mori said the Potter, you said, explain choice Atzeres. Now this word Abba is superfluous. Let's say this year Atzeres came out b'chamisha, came on the 5th day of Sivan. No, b'shishon, the animal was born on the 6th day of Sivan. But Atzeres Abba on the following year, due to leap months, the Yeshua's came out on the 7th day of Sivan. So then you have a year on the 6th day of Sivan before 3 regalim have expired.
How could Atzeres come out on the 5th day of Sivan?
Depends how many days are on Nisan in the year. If both are Chassid, then it comes out on Hay. If both are Moli, it comes out on Zayin. We always make one of them Chassid, one of them Moli, so it always comes out on Vav by us. Okay? Rabbi Bum Barachia Ba Kumi Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Bum Barachia asks upon Rabbi Zira. See, it says, Lo Yivaker Ben Tov L'Ra. This is not really directly related to our Sudya. We come back to it later on somewhat. It says, Meiser Behema. You're not supposed to distinguish every 10 animals supposed to smell Kaddish regardless of whether it's good or bad. Okay, you're not supposed to check which is good or which is bad. Over Bikir Mao Shiavor. What if you did check the animal? Well, it's just like only going to give good animals to my Tzrim. You're altruistic about it, so that you transgress an Isser of Lo Yivakir. So it says in Yerushalmi, very interesting answer. Kol Davar Amarle said Kol Davar Shebol La'atir. Anything which comes to be matin, which comes to be makel upon you, ain't no over. You're not moiver if you're more machmir. Ma ba'al hatir kan. What does the Torah come to permit here? A Torah yitir lakdish ba'al mumin. The Torah here came to permit to be makdish ba'al mumin, because lo yivaker ben tov l'ra means whatever animal comes out of your pen, every 10th one is kodesh regardless of how it is. So you want to be more machmir, make sure every animal which comes out of your pen as the 10th one is suitable to be kodesh. That's okay, you're allowed to be machmir. We don't penalize you if you're more machmir that way, okay? If you're coming to check, not to get out of a loophole, not to take advantage of a loophole, but in order to stop up personally that loophole, then that's okay, we let you do so.
But the flip side doesn't work if you're just looking for the bad ones.
Oh, that one doesn't work, right. Tavatin went over there. By Yom HaShmini, in the 8th day, Maybe shosh behemos. A Mitzorah brings 3 animals to atone for his Averos. Chatos v'osham v'ola. He brings a chatos, an osham, and an ola. V'adal, if a person is poor, maybe chatos of also brings a chatos and off and an ola sof, instead of the chatos and ola of the behema, right? Ve'ein chato, so says the Yerushalmi, ve'ein chatos, the word oaf is taken out by some of the Achronim, the Gilin Ephraim and the two Yerushalayim. So says this, so says the more, I understand, ve'ein chatos mechuser zman eitzel osham, isn't the chatos lacking time by an osham? In other words, you're always supposed to do the osham first. You hear in the Bible it says do the chatos first. How could that be? Rabbi Lezer says, "Kan hitira Torah l'haklish mechuser zman." You know what? You're right. The truth is you have to do the osham before the chatos. But here we're saying something else. We're saying that the Torah allowed you to consecrate animals which are mechuser zman. Now, the mechuser zman means that you're allowed to consecrate an animal which is going to be the chatas, even though it's not yet time for the chatas, it's still just time for the osham. And therefore it's mechuser zman, it's lacking the right timing, nonetheless you're still allowed to be makdish it. Is that clear? You mean makdish the chatas, even though the chatas is supposed to come after the osham, you're going to makdish the chatas before the osham.
Wasn't there a machlokas as to which came first?
Yes, and the Bible talks about which comes first. I know usually might have machlokas too, but here it doesn't refer to it, that's all.
But I mean, it's going to be in succession, so...
Yeah, but they have to be in specific order. The osham has to come first. Okay, at least according to Yerushalmi.
So mechuser zman, they mean even if it's 5 minutes.
Yes, that's right. It's not in the right order, right. So, vein chatos mechuser zman eitzel osham, chatos mechuser zman by osham. Rabbi Lezer said, you're right, the chatos can't be brought before the osham, but can be made kaddish before the osham. Can't you tell like this mechuser zman? Rabbi Mema Bokur Yami asked the question Rabbi Yam from Rabbi Yami. See, it says B'Shmini Yavo. It says on the 8th day you should come. Now this is according to some unfortunate, still going on Mitzorah. Other unfortunate, here most unfortunate word, the Gillian Ephraim learns it's going on Nazir. So Nazir comes on the 8th day. Nazir should come on the 8th day and complete a series of karbanos, get out of his naziros. Avar v'lo hevi. What if he came on he didn't come on the 8th day and bring his karbanos? Maush Yava, does he transgress not doing the proper avoda for being matayim for being a Nazir? And the Rashi, the Pekar says the transgress about to acher by not having brought in the 8th day as he's supposed to. So Amrlay, so here too he said kol davar shebo la'atir, anything which comes to permit, right, as opposed to forbid. Kol davar shebo la'atir eino over. Did you forget that it was in the yeshiva?
No, it's a conspiracy.
Right or left wing?
Both.
Well, we're almost finished. We're on Dal and Vase.
So where do we start tonight?
It was a short blot. Gimel and Ralph. I didn't skip. Promise.
That's okay. Whatever it takes. And I even ask questions.
Next week, Mir Hashem, 9:05 at Rabbi Twersky's shul.
Ooh.
Now, and they're expecting you for Marv. Not you personally.
You and 9 others.
That's right. And I have to call also Yaakov Weil and tell him also, because the Marv, is a cooperative venture between his shul and our Daf Yom Bishir.
Now, where's it located?
3460 Devon. There's a parking lot in the back.
Nondescript, actually.
Yeah, it's nondescript. There's a parking lot in the back, though, and the combination is. So it says, again, let's say it's from the top. We're on the top of Dalon base. It says the Nazir should come on the 8th day and bring his karbanos, right? Once he starts the process of becoming tar. If he doesn't come, if he doesn't bring his karbanos on the 8th day, Ma'oshav, did he transgress Baal Ta'acher? So he said, no, Kol Davar Shebolat here, anything which it comes as a favor to him. We want to be able to get him to be a Ois Nazir, right? So we do him a favor, we tell him, come on the 8th day and we'll finish the process. Kol Davar Shebolat here ain't no over. Anytime it comes to Matir, there's no Aver Baal Ta'acher, right? Ma'bolat here, what's called the Matir, Kida Mar Lozer, Kanitira Torah Lahakish Mechusar Zman. The Torah allowed you to be mocked, just like it said by Mitzorah, that the Torah was mocked you to be makdish mitzchus man. Torah allowed you to be makdish an animal, which out of a korban out of the proper order. So just like over there, the Torah allowed that for you. So too over here, the Torah was matir for you. It's not exactly the same thing, but so too the Torah is matir for you to hear the process of nazir in order to make sure that the way the Kol Gilead Ephraim explains it, so to hear the Torah is matir you to be makdish your oila prior to your chatos. They're actually psukim. The Yerushalmi doesn't bother bring down psukim. But Ramanav, the Yerushalmi proved that you're allowed to be makdish the chatos of a mitzvah before the osher mitzvah, even though you must be makdish the osher first. And here too, the Yerushalmi is saying they're psukim again. The Ephraim being some psukim, I'm not going to bother. Which tell you you're allowed to be makdish the Ola of a Nazir before the Chatas of a Nazir. Okay? Even though that's out of order, you're still allowed to be Makdish out of order. So since the Psukim tell us how you're allowed to be Makdish, they're not going to tell us specific strictures, or their point was not to tell strictures about which day the Nazir must bring those Korbanos, so therefore if the Nazir brings Korbanos late, it's okay, it doesn't transgress Baal Ta'acher. Now, of course, if he waits a whole year, Sholosh Regolim, right, then he's going to transgress once he starts the process of Tara, just like anybody else. But he doesn't transgress after the 8th day. This is predicated on something which you missed before, which is if somebody says the way beginning of the day, the beginning of the evening, we said somebody says I'm going to bring korban Monday, then on Monday already he transgresses Baal Ta'acher, he doesn't get a whole year. So Charlotte by Nazir is so in the 8th day you should transgress, you shouldn't get a whole year. And that the Yerushalmi is saying, no, the Psukim which tells the Nazir brings his korbanos on the 8th day are structured in a certain way to teach us a heter. Teach us a heter not relevant to our discussion, which is that Nazir can be makdish his korbanos out of order. Mimela, since they come to tell us a heter, the makdish korbanos out of order, then you don't transgress Baal Ta'acher by the 8th day. Okay? So it says more, Amar Rabbi Yosef Rebun, Kol Shiva ein Omer Lo Havei. All 7 days after an animal is born, we don't tell a guy to bring his korban, right? Because it's mechusar zman, it's not yet old enough, right? From here on in, we tell the guy to bring the korban. Okay, so it's a mitzvah saseh, although you don't transgress Baal Ta'acher for another 3 regolim or a whole year, but a mitzvah saseh to bring a korban after it already is 7 days old. I'm Rabbi Yosef. Masisa pliga Rabbi Yossi. There's the following Mishnah Arzai Yosef. It says, "Kulam miskavnim b'mviin korban the same regels." If anybody owes a korban, is mechavi to bring his korban the next regel he comes out. Comes out. How can you wait? It's mitzvah to say. What? So maybe most people waited, but to say everybody waited, what about the great tzaddikim? They should have brought the korbanos right away to be kind of mitzvahs to say. So Masir Rabbi Yisrael is not correct, and there is a mitzvah to say to come immediately. You can wait till the next regel. Okay? Nicha Nazir. I understand a Nazir. This is a cool question. It says here that they all bring their korbanos on Yontif. What part of Yontif would they bring their korbanos? Chol Hamoed, right? Now this includes also the people who were Nazir, remember Tzorayim. When they used to break their Nazir, so they're Tzaras. Not the from Yistamar, right? What else are they going to do? They're outside Yerushalayim. They'll come a Lila Regel, and then they'll break their Nazir and their Tzaras. So says Yerushalmi, I understand the Nazir. He can wait till Chamoid. But a Mitzaycha, Lo Mechusar Kippurim, until he brings his Karbanos, isn't he Mechusar Kippurim? So how is he going to have Simchas Yontif? For at the end we learn a Halava Simcha Shmoina. It says Halal and Simcha for 8 days. What's Simcha? Karbanos. How's he going to be Mesameach for all 8 days of Sukkot if you can't bring his korbanos on the first day Yontif, right? You won't have Shalmei Simcha to be Sameach. So this morning, you know what? It's Pasar Lei ben Nazir. He said, he's not happy the first day Yontif. What are you going to do? Who's happy for all 8 days? Only the Nazirim are happy for all 8 days. Okay. Of course, regular Jews too, but the Nazirim as well. Says more. In fact, it says about Rabbi Schaya Chasnei Rabbi Levi boy. He asked Kasha this Reish Atum Patrin. The Reish he said is talking about by both Mitzorah and Nazir. It says here, but Nazir, but it should be the name which says by Mitzorah. Reish to Patrin Mitzorah. It's even a Mitzorah brings his korban on Chol Hamoed. The Sefer, but the Sefer which says about the Simcha being all 8 days, you're talking about it's only by the Nazir. How can it be? How can you divide up the Mishnah? Right? Either this whole thing is talking about Nazir or Mitzorah, or it's all this talking about just Nazir. How can you have Nazir as part of the Sefer, the Mitzorah is part of the Ration, not part of the Sefer? Says Maram Rabbi Chena Breder Rav Hill, you know what? Lo kfar itas safta tamon. Didn't already ask the question over there? Rabbi Yosef said, Kaima Rabbi Avduman L'Chaysa. This is a question which we asked elsewhere. This is a question which we asked by If Sunday if first day Yontif comes on Shabbos, we're asked her, wait a minute, how can you say Simcha's all 8 days? What about if Yontif comes on Shabbos? Right? So where's the all 8 days of Simcha? Yontif, you can't be Makriv Shalmei Simcha. Shabbos can't be Makriv Shalmei Simcha either, right? So how do you get 8 days Simcha? You're missing it there, right? So the Gemara there says, you know what it's talking about? The Kohanim on Yontif proper, on Shabbos of Yontif, they still have Simcha. Why do they have Simcha? Because they have the Soyer Chatos of Musaf, which they slaughter and they get to eat. So when the Gemara says in Sukkah that there are 8 days of Simcha, means for the Kohanim there are 8 days of Simcha, because they even on Shabbos bring Shalmei Simcha, right? For the rest of the Jews, it's only 7 days, because one day Sukkah's got to fall on Shabbos, and that day you can't bring Shalmei Simcha. So it must be for everybody else. It's 6 or 7 days Simcha, not 7 days of Simcha. 7 days Simcha, not 8 days of Simcha. Counting Shmini Atzeres. 7 days, not 8 days. So the Mishnah says 8 days. So we say the Mishnah says about Kohanim. So again, so that also serves us for the other purpose. A Mitzvah only gets less than that, right? Or maximum 7, maybe even less, because not only can't he eat on Shabbos like everybody else, but he also, until his karbanos are brought, he can't eat karbanos altogether. So it doesn't bother us. Right? We'll say that that which it says 8 days Simcha, it's only going to the Kohanim, it's not going to Nazir, not a Mitzvah, not anybody else, even though some of them have more Simcha than others. Because the bottom line is the only person who have Simcha for 8 days straight are the Kohanim, who get to eat the meat of the karbanos on Shabbos as well.
Now the Gemara is differentiating between Oneg and Simcha.
Oneg Shabbos, you don't need karbanos? Sure. But sure. So
Simcha specifically.
Simcha specifically Basar, right. Rabbi Chagai Boikum Rabbi Yosef. Chagai asked for Rabbi Yosef. Now this is a very interesting question. Dr. Spindel actually was mechavid this question before. It says, "Ksiva Yom Hashmini Yimol." On the 8th day you should have Milah. What's if you don't do bris milah? Do you transgress Baal Ta'acher? Now, when would you transgress Baal Ta'acher? Think, when is the father going to transgress Baal Ta'acher?
The next day.
That's what you would say, right?
Yeah.
Some of the Farshim say like you. Guess what the Ridbaz says? After 3 regalim. It's Baal Ta'acher, right? So when you transgress Baal Ta'acher, it's 3 regalim. So that's the Shaila. So it says more, since Kavua Lozman, after the 8th day, like Mechusik Purim, you get a whole year, and then you transgress Baal Ta'acher or not? Our Malaysia said no. It says if you make a neder to God, lo ta'acher l'shalmo, then you shouldn't tarry to pay it. Something which is given as a neder to God, you shouldn't make haste in paying it back. something which is given as tashlum, and the Ritbaz changes the meaning of what that means exactly. It means it has to be something which is paid over, as opposed to bris milah. A, it's not a neder, it's an obligation. B, it's not given over to God. It's something, an act you perform. So therefore, it doesn't, it can't apply to that. So in which A, it's not shaykh to be neder on, and B, it's not shaykh to talk about it as something which you can give over to God. Okay, lo ta'achel shamo lo es khalifa. Do not tarry in paying the object to God. Do not tarry the year, nor its khalifin. Now that means what happens. What it means to say is not like it sounds like. It sounds like if you made Tamura, so there's also Ba'atach by Tamura, but we already know that. The Gemara has already said Shana b'Shana that there's a drasha means there's Ba'atach by the Tamura besides by the thing itself. The Shana is like this here. What happens if you said, okay, this is a carbon? Now, Gemara is going to expound on this, but I'll give it to you outside. This is a carbon. You're supposed to pay within a year, right? But you did it. But he brought another carbon instead. You transgressed Baal Ta'achir. Because the original netter you fulfilled, right? You transgressed Baal Ta'achir. I was going to ask that. So it says Gemara. It says, anybody who has a carbon doesn't bring the Petzl Omoy gets zapped. The fact you bring another carbon instead doesn't help you. Rabbi Yehuda said, and this is what you said before, Pirshal Levi ben Sisi Kumi Rabbi, Levi ben Sisi was playing in front of Rabbi, Boy Ma'arei Alai Ola. It's about a case where you said, I want to bring an Ola pop. He didn't designate an animal, he said Harei Alai, not Harei, right? So he said, "Arei, coming upon me." V'avra is the type which it says shtei regalim. So 2 regalim passed. Ve'evi acheres, and then he brought another carbon, v'kriva, and then he sacrificed it. Now, not the first one. You have the first one. You didn't sacrifice it, but you says a different animal, sacrifice the second animal.
That's not instead of the first animal.
That's a shot. Do you fulfill your netter with the second one, and you don't transgress Baal Ta'achir?
It sounds like it's an independent carbon.
How says? Because you said Harei Alai. Not Harei, you said Harei Alai, right? My I would say Yuftar Min HaRishona, right? I might say he's exempt from the first one because he brought the second one. Said Fum Kein Tzarech Lamar. Lo Khalifa. So we have to say no on the one you separated. And that we say Lo Tachlu Shama. The Khalifa does you no good. So it's more not true. If it's so about a case where all he said is Harei Alai, then Miyadu Oiver, and that you could say he's immediately Oiver. No, he fulfilled his neder. He said Harei Alai. He doesn't have to bring a specific animal for Harei Alai, so he brought the second one. That's fine. The shilas in this case, right? This should be an oila. And 2 regalim passed. And he brought another one. Here the Shari Torah at Eretz Yisrael throws it. After 2 regalim, it became a ba'amum. Became ba'amum, the first one. And he brought another one instead, but he didn't sacrifice it. And then over the regel shlishi. And then a 3rd regel passed. So you passed 2 or 3 regalim altogether. 2 on the first one and 1 on the second one, right? Do you transgress Baal Ta'achir or not? Is it mitzdarif, right? The first 2 passed over the first one, then it got a mum. So you said it's another one, and now 1 passed over the second one, right? Is it 3 altogether, right? I would say that you join together with the Tzmura all 3 regalim. That sort comes to tell us a kula, that it has to be on it itself past 3 regalim. The lowest khalifa of not taking its khalifa in account as well. Okay? So it finally becomes a kula, not a chumrah. Till we now said Khalifin doesn't get you around the problem. Right, we're talking about Harei Alai. We said ultimately it does, and now we're saying what Chalifin does is not generate a problem. In other words, if you said Harei Zeh, and it got a mum after 2, so then it's still the fact that now you set aside a third one, a second one, that second one gets a full year. It doesn't count that after just one to be start for the first 2. Ki the Rosh HaShanah. Now this is continuation. Above says L'Blautach. It says Ki the Rosh HaShanah. God is going to demand it from you. Il chatos v'hashamos. That's chatos and Rosh. Hashem Elokecha. God's going to demand. God will demand. Zeh hekdesh berek habayis. Hekdesh berek habayis. You want to make something hekdesh berek habayis. It's also to bring the base of Mikdash within a year. Okay, you can't leave it around. Me'imcha. God's going to demand for you. Zeleket shichon peah. You set aside matona sanim. You also only got a year. However, what happens if you did tarry? Then you're a sinner. V'lo b'korban chachet. In other words, bring it anyway. Right? There's a late charge. We're going to give you some Gehanim for it, but bring it anyway. The sooner the better. The loke manru of rain. It says more. Isn't it obvious? What else will we say? You shouldn't say Shema Yimotze Zevach Posel. That maybe the korban itself becomes posel if it's late, like Mechusar's man. So this is Tosefet's man, right? It's already too late to bring it. That's what it say. There's going to be a chet in you, it doesn't render the korban unfit. Continuing, Motzas v'sechel tishmor, that which your lips enunciate, you should preserve asisa and do. Tishmor v'asisa, you should preserve and you should do. Seems to be redundant. La'azir basin shasucha. No, teacher's basin can compel you to do. If you promise me a korban you haven't brought it yet, bow we. So we beat you up until you bring it, right? Rabban the Kesayanam b'shem Rabbi Avina said, "Minayin mikan lemashkon." We know that we compel people to bring korbanos. We force them to bring it. Okay? It says more kasher nadat Hashem l'keachon nedava, like you promised to God a gift. It says more v'yesh neder kri nedava. What does it mean? It's either it's a neder or a nedava. What does it mean? A neder called a nedava. El chayav a called neder v'neder. Called nedava nedavas. Many animals you didn't bring up to Yerushalmi on the proper time. You're chayav to transgress the law in each one. Ezu neder. What's considered to be a neder in our halacha? We all know this. Should be in oil. Rabbi Chama Charvein the Rabbanim boy. Rabbi Chama the friend of the rabbi said. What's the status of korban which you said first Harei Alai and then you said concerning the Sama Harei Zu? Right? So you transgress twice. It's like Isser Chal Isser because it's a neder and a dava. Achina boy Rabbi China said Lo mistar bro da. Ella. No, not in that case. In that case you don't say Isser Chal Isser. Rather Amar Harei Zu v'chos Amar Harei Alai. You said Harei Zu and then Harei Alai, then you transgress twice. Why? Because Isser Chomer, Chal, Isser Kal. A more weighty Isser devolves on a lighter Isser, but then Isser Kal, Chal, Isser Chomer. Why is Harei Alai more Chomer? Because you're chayiv in replacement. If you say Harei Zeh, if the animal gets lost, you're exempt. Say Harei Alai, if the animal gets lost, you have to bring another one, right? So a neder is chal on a dava. So if you first made a dava, it said Harei Zeh, and then you made a neder and said Harei Alai. So then both lashonos are chal, and you transgress twice, and you got 2 isurim b'al tacher. But not vice versa, because the isur kal of Harei Zeh doesn't come and devolve on the isur chomer of Harei Alai.
Well, because the kal is included in the chomer.
Right. Okay? So it says more, Sifa Lame, they added on stuff in which you transgress Baal Tacher. Schar Batim. No. Period. It's a period. Sifa Lame is going back to the Mishnah. They added on, we said Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Rosh HaShanah from Lachim and Regalim, right? So they added on also rent. Rent is payable on a yearly basis. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the turning point. Just like in Chicago, it's a moving period in May. So that's the Makor. Also, Truma Shkolim. We all know that. Truma Zalishka, the first one is done on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? It says, More Schar Batim Rabbi Yenevu Shomar Shana Zu. Shnasu, it's only if you said you're paying your rent for this year. I believe Mama Shana, when he said a year, Shana Achas Noisim Eislei, so whenever he enters the apartment, it's a year. So Shana Zu, it means the calendar year, so it goes for Nisan. If it said for Shana, just plain year, it goes from by 365 days. Uchuma Shkolim, well, what about Shuma Shkolim? Ki Idam Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Ki Tchilas, just like it was in the Midbar. Vayi b'chodesh ha'rishon b'shana sheis be'echel chodesh ukam mishkan. The Tani says that on that day the Mishkan was erected on Rosh Chodesh. The Tani Look said that b'yom shukam Mishkan bo b'yom nis truma. On that day they took truma salishka. So too for all generations. Rabbi Tavi, Rabbi Yeshe b'shem Rav Kana said Nemar kan chodshei. It says chodshei over here, v'nemar la'al chodshei. It says chodshei over there. Ma chodshei shnemar la'al ein monim elam Nisan. Just like Rishon Lachem chodshei Shon is only from Nisan. Av chodshei shnemar kan, so the chodshei here is talking about ein monim elam Nisan. Starts in Nisan. Or Rabbi Yehuda said Shavik Rabbi Tavi Resha Barmar Seifa. Rabbi Tavi forsook the Resha and mentioned the Seifa. The locate, and it's not like that, but rather this is the full brisa. Other times that we should learn. So it has chodesh b'chodesh l'ziyala v'chodesh, and it's mat. Yochi eitar b'chol chodesh v'chodesh. You give truma salishka in each and every month. Amlamar v'chodesh l'chodesh hashana. No, in its month for the months of the year. Echad u'toy b'chol chodesh hashana. We give one truma the entire year. We added two more. We do 3 year, but the rice of one a year. Yochel Beis Chodesh says in any month he wants. This is a sefer. It says Chodesh here, it says Chodesh there. Ma Chodesh Shnemar Lon, a Monim Elam Nisan, just like over there. Rishon Lachem Chodesh Shana is from Nisan. Av Chodesh Shnemar Kan, so to the Chodesh by Trumas Alishka. Ein Monim Nisan starts from Nisan, not previously, and we will stop here for this evening.